Senate will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Baisley. Senator Baisley. Bridges.
Excused.
Buckner. Senator Buckner. Coleman. Cutter. Danielson. Exum. Fields. Gardner. Senator Gardner. Senator Gardner.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you. Janal. Gonzalez. Hanson. Senator Hanson. Henriksen. Huckes Lewis. Kirkmeyer. Kolker. Liston. Lundin. Marchman. Senator Marchman. Michelson Janay. Mullica. Pelton B. Pelton R. Priola. Rich. Roberts. Rodriguez. Simpson. Smallwood. Sullivan. Senator Sullivan.
Excused.
Van Winkle. Will. Winter.
Excused.
Zenzinger. Senator Bridges.
Excused.
Mr. President.
Here. The morning roll call is 32 present, 0 absent, 3 excused. We do have a quorum. Senator Roberts. Where is he? Would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the journal. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any fancy riddle like Senator Liston usually does, so I'm just going to get right to it. I move that the Senate Journal of April 5th, 2024 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You probably didn't hear the motion, but it was approving of the journal. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Will the clerk please add Senator Sullivan to the roll? Senate Services.
April 8th, 2024, correctly engrossed Senate Bill 188, correctly revised House Bills 1161, 1385, 1386, 1387, 1388, 1389, 1390, 1391, 1392, 1393, 1394, 1395, 1396, 1397, 1398, 1399, 1400, 1401, 1402, 1403, 1404, 1405, 1406, 1407, 1408, 1409, 1410, 1411, 1412, 1413, 1414, 1415, 1416, 1417, 1418, 1419, 1420, 1421, 1422, 1423, 1424, 1425, 1426, 1427, 1428, and 1430.
Message from the House.
April 5th, 2024, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted to the revised statutes. House Bills 1030, 1028, and 1362 amended as printed in the House Journal, April 3rd, 2024. The House has voted to concur in the Senate amendments to House Bill 1039, House Bill 1011, and House Bill 1003, and has repassed the bills as so amended.
Message from the reviser.
April 5th, 2024, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bills 1028, 1030, and 1362.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for the introduction and consideration of resolutions.
The motion is to proceed out of order for the introduction and consideration of resolutions. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate will now proceed out of order. Introduction and consideration of resolutions. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Joint Resolution 16?
Senate Joint Resolution 16 by Senators Michaels and Janay and Representatives Woodrow and Weinberg concerning the commemoration of the Holocaust.
Senator Michelson Janay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Joint Resolution 16 and ask for the resolution to be read at length.
Will the clerk please read Senate Joint Resolution 16 at length?
Senate Joint Resolution 16 by Senator Michaels and Janay and Representatives Woodrow and Weinberg concerning the commemoration of the Holocaust. Whereas genocide begins not with violence but with words, and whereas prejudice, bigotry, bias, and racism have been the causes of conflict, war, and mass atrocities throughout human history, and whereas observing an individual moment of silence for each Jewish victim of the Holocaust would take over 11 years, and whereas the English word Holocaust derives from Greek words meaning whole, holos, and burnt, kaustos, and generally describes destruction on a mass scale. Holocaust as a proper noun specifically refers to the state-sponsored persecution and mass murder of European Jews and others at the direction of the German Nazi government between 1933 and 1945. And whereas the Nazis, who came to power in Germany in January 1933, asserted that Germans were racially superior and that Jews and others were inferior and an alien threat to the so-called German racial community. And whereas the Nazis used anti-Semitism as a political weapon to gain popular support, blaming Jews for all of Germany's hardships, including the country's defeat in World War I, the economic depression, and the threat of Bolshevik communism, it made little difference that the Nazis' accusations were blatantly contradictory and their so-called facts were fabricated. And whereas between 1933 and 1945, Nazi Germany and its collaborators murdered 6 million Jews, 2 out of every 3 Jews who lived throughout Europe, 1.5 million of whom were children, as well as 5 million other civilians, including Sinti people, Roma people, people with intellectual or developmental disabilities, gay men, Jehovah's Witnesses, Soviet prisoners of war, and political dissidents. And whereas we recall that in the aftermath of World War II, Israel, a close ally and friend of the United States, became a refuge for many survivors who endured the ravages of the Holocaust and has remained a sanctuary for Jews worldwide, seeking safety ever since. And whereas we gratefully acknowledge the more than 28,000 non-Jews who, at great risk to themselves, saved Jews from extermination during the Holocaust and have been designated righteous among the nations by Yad Vashem, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center. And whereas today, as we mourn the loss of those who were killed and consider the terrible experiences of those who suffered and lived through the Holocaust, we note that anti-Semitic acts are not a thing of the past. According to the Anti-Defamation League's annual audit of anti-Semitic incidents, anti-Jewish incidents surged to historic levels in 2022, with a total of 3,697 incidents reported across the United States, an increase of 36% compared to 2021. In Colorado, there were 71 reported incidents of anti-Jewish harassment, vandalism, and assault in 2022, which is the second highest level recorded in more than 10 years. Preliminary ADL data indicates that the number of reported anti-Semitic incidents in 2023 will be 3 times what it was in 2022. Colorado ranked 12th in the country in 2022 and 8th in 2021 for the most reported anti-Semitic incidents. Globally, there has also been an increase in anti-Semitic incidents. Some Jews feel more isolated and vulnerable as a result. And whereas today, while we remember the Holocaust, we focus our attention on the passing of Holocaust survivors who provided first-hand accounts of the terrors they endured, leaving their children and grandchildren as the last generations to know the stories of the Holocaust directly from those who lived through it. And whereas we are fortunate that several organizations in Colorado are dedicated to retelling the stories of the Holocaust and other genocides, it is not enough. Far too many people, including most students, need more opportunities to learn about these atrocities so they are not repeated. To mitigate the issue, on July 8, 2020, Governor Polis signed into law House Bill 1336, requiring the satisfactory completion of a course that includes Holocaust and genocide studies as a condition of high school graduation in public schools. And whereas we recognize the tremendous investment and preparation that Colorado school districts, administrators, and foremost classroom educators are putting forth to implement and support House Bill 1336 as they ensure the phrase, "We remember," will carry meaning and merit for generations of Colorado students. And whereas it is our responsibility to bear witness to the truth of the horrors of the Holocaust, its many lessons, and to prevent hateful words from building up like the bricks that built Auschwitz, now therefore be it resolved by the Senate of the 74th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, that we, the members of the General Assembly, 1, commemorate the Holocaust, 2, promote anti-bias, bullying prevention, and Holocaust and genocide education programs in school districts and universities to prevent anti-Semitic incidents that target Jewish students, including targeting based on their actual or perceived support of the State of Israel. And 3, declare that the people of Colorado should understand the power of words, remember the great injustices of the past, and commit to preventing such atrocities in the future. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to the Jewish Community Relations Council of Jewish Colorado, the Mountain States Regional Office of the Anti-Defamation League, the Coalition Against Global Genocide, the Holocaust Awareness Institute at the University of Denver Center for Judaic Studies, the Interfaith Alliance of Colorado, the Meisel Museum, the Denver Parks and Recreation Department's Babi Yar Park, the Mountain States Office of the Jewish National Fund, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., the Colorado Holocaust Educators, and the University of Colorado at Boulder Program in Jewish Studies.
Senator Michelson Janae.
Thank you, Mr. President, and please be seated. Today we stand in front of you to commemorate 11 million people who died for no reason at all. 6 million of those were Jewish people, and many of those were my family members. When I was 17 years old, I had the chance to travel to Poland and to visit concentration camps. And I found that my favorite place in the world is the Warsaw Jewish Cemetery. Now you might ask, a cemetery is an odd place to be your favorite place in the world. But when I stand in the Warsaw Jewish Cemetery, I feel my ancestors. I feel connected to the earth and the land that they lived on and that they died on. And Holocaust Memorial Day, which actually, the actual day is not until after session, so we're commemorating today, is a day for me of great reflection on my family, on my community, and on those that I love. My brother, I called my brother this morning. I said, give me some guidance. What should I talk about today? And he said, Daphne, you're a testament to the failure of the Holocaust. As a Jewish woman standing in front of you, an elected official in the state of Colorado, the Holocaust did not succeed. When I came back from Poland, I was asked to talk about the Holocaust in many schools around. I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. And in one of the first schools, a little girl got up, fourth grader, and said, "I thought all the Jews were dead." And I said, "No, we are here." I was born in Tel Aviv. I moved to America with my parents. My family tracks the list of people who we know perished in the Holocaust. We live this every day. And as Passover is approaching, when we remember the exodus from Egypt when we were slaves, I read a fair amount about what the last Passover in Warsaw Ghetto was like. And in the ghetto, they were told that they were going to be invaded on that night of Passover when they were going to have the Seder. And they decided to go into their bunkers, into hiding. And the reading that I read from Yad Vashem, I don't want to read it all to you today, but the reading that I read from the website from Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Israel, it said that the faces were lit by gunfire and the fires of burning buildings around them, while glasses of wine sat in the center of the table. I think about my Seder table, and it is always filled with people, and filled with wine, and matzah, and food, and story, and they sat there waiting for their end on that last Passover in the Warsaw Ghetto. Today, I ask you to remember what happened there and know that the Jewish people are not dead. We do exist. We thrive in our communities, and we are here today. With your permission, Mr. President, I'm going to sing one song.
Please proceed.
So Chana Senesh wrote this song, and it is a song that reminds us of the world that we live in and that the world that we don't want to lose. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, hachol v'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat hadam, hachol v'hayam, rishru shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat hadam. O Lord, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of man. Thank you.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to thank my colleague, the senator from Commerce City, for allowing me to be the co-prime sponsor of the Holocaust Remembrance Resolution. This is my last session, as many of you know, and I think I have been the sponsor of this resolution with colleagues at least 4 or 5 times. And each and every time that I speak on this day, I do a lot of soul searching about what else can be said or what should be said. Actually not so difficult this year because of the times in which we live. We've seen a rising incidence of acts of anti-Semitism, of acts of desecrations of synagogues, of attacks on those in the Jewish community. We need to bear witness that each and every incident is not only an attack on the Jewish community, it's an attack upon us all. That freedom is not lost in one fell swoop. The Holocaust did not happen by a single meeting of Nazis to decide the so-called final solution. It happened one tiny incident at a time, and each and every time that we let those pass without saying something, without doing something, we allow one more step to be taken to a Holocaust, to a genocide. We came out of World War II and said never again, and yet again and again has happened around the world in genocides. My own experience as a 22-year-old who had just graduated from the Air Force Academy and took the great backpack trip to Europe on my leave, I found myself in Amsterdam and said, oh, I'll go in the Anne Frank house. And I spent hours there. Not because I'd never heard of the Holocaust, not because as a military member I wasn't well familiar with the history of World War II, but because of the experience of realizing that a teenage girl could have her world turned upside down by evil. And when we fail to call evil what it is, we fail. So let us, I won't sing, Mr. President, and thank you, your voice is beautiful. But let us remember today and remember that the rule of law matters, humanity matters, and that each and every time that we see an assault on humanity, it is our responsibility, not yours, not someone else's, not our government's, but each of our own, mine first and foremost, to say, no, not here, not now, we will not allow it. I urge and I vote, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning.
Senator Janal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong support of SJR 016, commemoration of the Holocaust. I first just want to state something that is quite interesting to me, and I think you'll find it interesting as well. In 1945, soldiers of the 60th Army of the 1st Ukrainian Front opened the gates of Auschwitz concentration camp. That's a mere 80 years ago. That's not that long in the scheme of time. But isn't it a paradox of history that Stalinist totalitarian soldiers brought freedom to prisoners of Nazi totalitarianism? This as well is my last time I can speak in regards to the Holocaust remembrance here in the Capitol, such as the good senator from Colorado Springs. And I want to share, some of you may have heard this, some of you might not have, but I want to share my experience and where I'm coming from. Several years ago, I traveled to my homeland, or one of my homelands, Poland. This is where my father's parents were from, Warsaw and Krakow. And spent quite a bit of time in Krakow, which is a beautiful, happy city. And it's hard to imagine what it was like 80 years ago. But in that beautiful city, I took a very sobering trip, about 50 miles down the road, to Auschwitz and Birkenau. And the shock and the sorrow has stayed with me since then, and it will never leave. Growing up, I wasn't aware, basically, of the cruelty and the hatred and the dehumanization that the Jews had suffered. I knew a little bit about it from school, but not very much. My parents told me not to ever say my ancestry was from Poland. My ancestry was from Ukraine. My ancestry was from parts of Russia. I was an American. I wasn't to say anything else. My best friend from kindergarten through college was Jewish, but we never talked about why she celebrated different holidays than I did, or why I didn't even celebrate my Polish heritage, my Ukrainian heritage, or maybe even my Russian heritage. We didn't celebrate those. We just celebrated the holidays, Christmas, New Year's. What I'd seen growing up was a few horrifying documentaries of the Holocaust on PBS in my 20s. But it really didn't embrace me until I met my future husband, who was a Jew, and his family, he had lost a lot of his family in the Holocaust. In fact, one time we were watching a PBS documentary, and he started sobbing. And I asked him why. And that's when I learned that so many of his relatives never came home. We did get married, but before we got married, I had to convert to Judaism. And that was in my 20s. I still am a Jew. That meant that I had to learn about the Jewish faith and the tradition, studying with a rabbi, which my studies were over 9 months, and I learned so much in that time frame, so much about the history of the Jewish peoples, of faith, and I continue today to identify proudly as a Reformed Jew. Going back to Auschwitz, I don't know how many of you have visited Auschwitz or Birkenau or any of the concentration camps, but these were atrocities, and with not only just Jews, but Poles and gays and so many others that went through it. And again, I will never forget what I saw that one day, where over 1.1 million people died in Auschwitz. 90% were Jews. The SS murdered the majority of them in gas chambers, others in firing squads, or they tortured them through medical experiments. I remember driving down the beautiful country roads before we got to Auschwitz, and then we took a turn, and seeing the railroad tracks, which literally led to nowhere. The last stop for millions of innocent people. thinking that they would be safe or that they were going to get a hope on life. I remember the large iron sign at the main gate. Translated from German to English, it means work will make you free. But in reality, it meant that torture and death were the only way to be free. And I still can't forget seeing all the items as you go through various parts of Auschwitz, the items that were confiscated when they got off the trains and before they went into the gas chambers, the piles of human hair, piles of gold teeth, eyeglasses, children's eyeglasses, shoes, baby shoes, and the hundreds of empty canisters that had contained the cyanide pellets that were used in those showers. These innocent people believed they were going to see their possessions again. They were just going in to get cleansed. The feeling I had when I walked into the showers and when I saw the crematory ovens where millions were burned was beyond words. And to this day, the ponds, there are a series of man-made ponds at that time that are behind the crematory ovens. And they're still gray, still a grayish color from all the ashes that were dumped from the millions of Jews and others who were persecuted at Auschwitz and Birkenau. It's still gray, 80 years, and it's still gray with the ashes. To this day and for the rest of my life, I can never forget. And as was mentioned, the world must never forget. It's important not to allow the Holocaust and Auschwitz and other camps to fade from collective memory. Why? Because more than ever, people need to know and ask why, continue to ask why, and learn. How could anyone have done this? Why didn't anyone stop them? And lastly, what do we do each day to make sure that this never happens again? Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. And thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues, for bringing forth this Holocaust commemoration.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 16. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, to excuse, Senate Joint Resolution 16 is adopted. Co-sponsor, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Without objection, we request that the morning roll call be added as co-sponsors to SJR 16.
See no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors to Senate Joint Resolution 16. The Senate will stand in a brief recess to greet all of our guests.
We're going to ask for silence and chimes.
Oh.
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Senator Gardner, the Senate will come back to order. Apologies. Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Prior to greeting our guest and concluding our sponsorship, we request that the Senate observe a moment of silence and that the chimes ring out.
The Senate will observe a moment of silence and the chimes will ring. Senator Michelson Janae.
Thank you, and I invite you all to come and visit with the wonderful members of the Jewish community who have taken time today to be here with all of us for this memorial, and thank you for your attention today.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, members. The Senate will stand in a brief recess. The Senate will come to order. General orders. Second reading of bills. Consent calendar. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Marchman will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the coat rule is relaxed for everyone. Will the clerk please read the title of the bill on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1222 by Representatives Pugliese and McLaughlin and Senator Rich concerning updating terminology that refers to entities that administer human services programs.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the passage of the bill on second reading of bills consent calendar, which is House Bill 1222.
Is there any discussion on House Bill 1222? The motion before the body is the adoption of the bill on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motions for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
Senate will come to order. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a bill under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
April 8th, 2024, Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bill, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1222 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 2 excused, Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bill 1222 passed on second reading and order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general orders, second reading of bills, and Senator Marchman will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed for everybody. Will the clerk please read the title to SB 060?
Senate Bill 60 by Senators Kirkmeyer and Janal and Representative Hartsook concerning exempting certain drugs from the purview of the Colorado Prescription Drug Affordability Review Board.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 60 until Monday, April the 15th.
The motion is to lay over SB 60 until Monday. Is that right? Sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and SB 60 will lay over until April 15th. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 106 until tomorrow, Tuesday, April the 9th.
The motion for the body is to lay over Senate Bill 106 until tomorrow, April 9th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, we'll lay over 106. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over SCR 001 until Thursday, April the 11th.
The motion is to lay over SCR SCR 001 until April 11th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and SC 001 will lay over till 4/11. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 187 until Wednesday, April the 10th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 187 until April 10th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 187 will lay over until April 10th. Will the clerk please read the title to SB 189?
Senate Bill 189 by Senators Fields and Hansen and Representative Weissman concerning gender-related changes to crimes that involve bias.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 189 and the Judiciary Committee report.
To the Judiciary Committee reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We made one small change in Judiciary around clarification of the text with input from the DA's counsel to make sure we had it right in the final bill, and I ask for your acceptance of the Judiciary Committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the Judiciary Committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to L002?
L002.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we move Amendment L002.
To the amendment, Senator Fields.
Members, basically what this amendment does, it just aligns the language that we have in the bill that also includes the legislative declaration, which includes gender identity and gender expression. We ask for an aye vote on this amendment L002.
Is there any further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of L002.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. L002 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Fields.
Members, this is a very important bill, Senate Bill 189. Basically, it just kind of codifies in our statute that hate has no safe harbor in the state of Colorado, and we've expanded the definition to include gender identity and gender expression. We ask for an aye vote on this Senate Bill 189.
Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 189 redefines sexual orientation to be an individual's identity or another individual's perception thereof in relation to the gender or genders to which the individual is sexually or emotionally attracted and the behavior or social affiliation that may result from the attraction. Just for my constituents, just more of the same obsession that's unhealthy for this body. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Gardner. We are on 189. To the bill, that's correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I actually was replaced on committee the day this came up, but would have been a no vote in committee, and I will be a no vote this morning. But I think it's important to understand why. I don't have any difficulty or discomfort with adding gender identity or gender expression into the list of things that are bias motivation, that are ill motivations for the commission of a crime. But from the time I was elected in the House to today, I have had an objection to the classification or creation of separate crimes for these bias motivations as opposed to any other motivations. I have not, in general, opposed sentence enhancers, if you can call them that. I mean, we do, but in other words, making a more severe sentence for various motivations, whether the motivation is And let me back up, and it may sound trite, but murder is murder. And sexual assault is sexual assault, and assault is assault, and harassment is harassment. Now, some murders occur in the heat of a moment, and they're classified, if the jury so finds, they're classified as murder in the second degree, and some are premeditated, and they're murder in the first. And each and every time a crime is committed at sentencing, the judge is to consider things like, what were the motivations for that crime? How did it occur? What were the circumstances? And it's appropriate that we do. And if we want to add that into our list of things that judges ought to consider, I think we should. But when we create a separate crime for a particular set of bias motivations, we ignore other bias motivations that may be just as severe, just as unsavory is probably the best word, things that are just as horrific. We would be far better served in our criminal sentencing to ensure that the crime itself be what is tried. So, what you see when you have a mass shooting, we had one in Colorado Springs last year, and immediately the question becomes, well, was it bias motivated? Can you prove bias? Was there anything that the perpetrator did that might give us the opportunity to say, oh, this is bias motivated, and so it's a separate crime. Members, that's the only reason. I find these motivations for murder, assault, and any other crime as objectionable as any of you, and perhaps more so. But this is not the way to structure your criminal statutes, and that's why I'm a no vote. Thank you.
Is Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to give a little context as to how this bill came about, Senate Bill 189. You just heard the good senator from El Paso County talk about motivated crimes, and he mentioned murder is murder, sexual assault is sexual assault, and I'm here to tell you that hate is hate. The reason you have in front of you Senate Bill 189 is because the state of Colorado has seen an increase in hate crimes. I convened a roundtable discussion with law enforcement, with advocates, with organizations like Hate Free Colorado, ADL, a whole bunch of folks, One Colorado. And when we looked at the data that is compiled by the state, it shows that the number one reason for the uptick that we're seeing in the state of Colorado, it's up by 475%. And those hate crimes were based on gender identification, and gender expression. As a state, we have a responsibility to look at what's causing these increases in crime and our DAs and other people told us that there was a gap in our statute. In the statute, when we look at gender-related bias-motivated crimes, it was missing gender identification and gender expression in our Colorado state statute. It was missing. This bill doesn't acquire any type of additional appropriations, but what it does, it makes sure that we are protecting the level of hate that is being expressed in the state of Colorado as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community. Colorado is not unfamiliar with signs of hate. We just saw that not too long ago with the Q Club shooting. We have other examples. This gives our DAs and law enforcement more tools that they need to reverse the trend when it comes to crimes that are related and based on hate. It's that simple. It's that easy. I urge an aye vote on Senate Bill 189.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of SB 189. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 189 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title, Majority Leader Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 90 until Monday, April the 15th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 90 until April 15th. All those in favor say aye. And those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 90 will lay over till the 15th. Will the clerk please read the title to HB 1341?
House Bill 1341 by Representatives Marvin and Wilford and Senator Cutter concerning the state idling standard and in connection therewith authorizing a local government to enact a resolution or ordinance concerning idling that is at least as stringent as but not less stringent than the state standard.
Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 241341.
To the bill.
So, members, this is an issue that impacts idling. Standards impact so many different things: public health, climate change. It's an environmental injustice issue. And in other regions around the country that also have ground-level ozone pollution problems, county and city governments often implement lower time limits for idling, so 1 to 3 minutes, to benefit air quality. So right now, we have a standard of 5 minutes per every 60 minutes, and we are looking to just lift the preemption so that local governments can do what they want, and that applies to commercial vehicles. And we've made some really reasonable exemptions, you know, when truckers are in a using it to heat or cool a sleeper berth during a rest or sleep period. There's a few issues like that that seem to make a lot of sense. So it's a very common sense bill, and I would ask for your support today.
Senator Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the sponsor as well. We had good conversation in Transportation and Energy Committee about idling standards in Colorado for vehicles over 14,000 pounds. So that's delivery vans and trucks, bigger sized vehicles, diesel vehicles. What the bill does is basically say we currently have a standard, again, 5 minutes within 60, and local entities can choose to draft their own idling standard, but it can't exceed that statewide standard. This bill wants to flip it on its head and said you can adopt a standard, but it has to be at least as restrictive as the state standard and can be higher. It's problematic to think about communities that want different approaches to this problem and making it so prescriptive that you have to take the 5 in 60 minutes. And there are some carve-outs for some special considerations, but those we got to allow local entities to craft their own carve-outs to match what the needs of the community are. So I was a no in committee and encourage a no vote today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Pelton B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I totally agree with the good senator from Alamosa. What we used to call this when I was a county commissioner was local control with strings attached. The state wants to come in and tell you you can't go below this threshold, but then they come and say, so you have to make it either more stringent or as stringent. And the problem with that is it's not local control. Local control means that your commissioners or your city councilmen will go in and say, we think this is what our community wants, and not from this building. And so that's why I voted no. We had a really good discussion about it. And my other concern is the wear and tear on the vehicles, especially when you're not starting up that long. I used to drive truck for my father, and I remember he used to make me start it up for at least 15 minutes before I loaded up the cattle and brought it over the hill. So I'm just saying that I think that there's also some issues with the engines and that sort of thing and what we're starting up and what we need to keep running. So, but for the most part, I just really have a problem with the local control aspect of this. If you're gonna talk about local control, it needs to be local control at the local level all the way down, not just what the state tells you, then you can go more stringent or as stringent. So I ask for a no vote.
Senator Will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I come up in opposition to this bill. You know, it's interesting. This morning I drove over here, and it was 4 degrees on Vail Pass when I came over. And we're in spring, we're in April, but it's 4 degrees. So many trucks, you can't, they spend the night in the trucks and they're taking their breaks and staying within their logs and their time frames. And there's places in Colorado, you turn your truck off and take your sleep, it's not gonna start in the morning. And that's temperatures way below zero and many locations across Colorado. And this bill just doesn't work, I think, for commercial truckers at all. So I'll be a no vote, thank you.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I am an enthusiastic aye vote on this bill. I worked for 3 years in the commercial trucking industry, and the first company I worked for, one of the biggest struggles that we were having when I was working there was getting drivers to reduce the idling time on the vehicles. Because it was a cost that was adding up. It's a small cost, and it's something that many companies take for granted because it's a small cost, but collectively it adds up, in addition to the wasteful pollution generated by it. So we tinkered with incentive programs while I was there in different fleets, and I was a manager of a regional fleet, to incentivize drivers with their pay for reducing the idling time. And part of the performance bonus of the fleet managers was based on our ability to reduce the idling time of vehicles in that fleet. So many times when we come up here, we talk about environmental legislation and the discussion is a cost-benefit discussion of the cost of the regulation to business, the cost and economic activity versus the cost of not doing anything and the environmental costs and what that means for the communities that are impacted. This is one that should be really easy. We're talking about an environmental regulation that should communities seek to adopt will be saving businesses money. And we're talking about it on a localized form. Is entirely important to have that local control in this sense because that pollution has such a more significant impact if you're inside city limits around a populated area versus a truck stop or a rest area on I-70 or I-25 well removed from the communities that would be impacted by the pollution. The bill also has, I think, been very gracious in some of the carve-outs, and we talk about idling for cooling units during sleeper berth utilization. That's not going to even apply to any trucks fielded in fleets in the last 15 years. They all operate off of auxiliary power units anyway. So this is a minimal regulation that will have impacts for air quality for our communities, and to the extent that it's any burden, it'll be offset by saving companies money when they comply with this regulation. So very good bill. Enthusiastically urge an aye vote.
The motion is the adoption of HB 1341. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1259 until Tuesday, April the 9th, tomorrow, April the 9th.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1259 until April 9th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1259 will lay over till tomorrow. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 164 until tomorrow, April the 9th.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 164 until tomorrow, April 9th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That one will lay over. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1429 until Wednesday, April the 10th.
The motion is to lay over HB 1429 until April 10th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and 1429 will lay over. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion for the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
Senator will come to order. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
April 8th, 2024. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 189 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered and engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1341 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 106, House Bill 1259, Senate Bill 164 laid over until April 9th, 2024, and retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 187 and House Bill 1429 laid over until April 10th, 2024, and retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Concurrent Resolution 1 laid over until April 11th, 2024, and retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 60 and 90 laid over until April 15th, 2024, and retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Senators Van Winkle, Mr. Minority Leader Smallwood, Rich, Pelton B. Hold, please. Hold, please. I'm so sorry. We're going to start over. If there are any no votes, please raise your hand. Mr. Minority Leader Rich, Van Winkle, Simpson, Smallwood, Pelton R, Pelton B. With a vote of 26 ayes, 7 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 189 is amended, passed in second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1341 passed in second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bills 106, House Bill 1259, Senate Bill 164 laid over until 4/9/2024, retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 187, House Bill 1429 laid over until 4/10/2024, retaining their place on the calendar. SCR 24001 laid over until 4/11/2024, retaining its place on the calendar. Senate Bill 60 and Senate Bill 90 laid over until 4/15/2024 and retaining their place on the calendar. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Will the clerk please read the title of Senate Bill 73?
Senate Bill 73 by Senators Smallwood and Rodriguez and Representatives Velasco and Tatone concerning a change to the maximum number of employees that an employer may employ to qualify as a small employer for health care insurance coverage.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 73.
Any discussion, Senator Smallwood?
The majority leader and I actually worked diligently with the House members on these amendments and are happy to see them not only introduced but passed, most notably providing that the insurance carriers perform 2 rate filings for the 2026 plan year so that we get to see the data before and after Senate Bill 73 before we decide to move forward, as well as allowing some flexibility for the former small group plans who would be moved into large group, who want to stay small group, to be able to make some changes. We think they're good amendments and would ask for your aye vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 73. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 73.
The motion is a repassage of Senate Bill 73. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 73 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Message from the House. Oh, hold on. Before that, but whoever was ready for that, thank you. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Voting on the prevailing side, I move that the Senate reconsider Senate Bill 73.
The motions for the reconsideration of Senate Bill 73, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted and reconsideration is granted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 73
The motion
and ask
is
for everybody to have an aye vote again.
the motion is a repassage of Senate Bill 73. Are there any no votes? Senator Roberts. With a vote of 32 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, and 2 excused, Senate Bill 73 is repassed. Co-sponsors again. Senator Hansen. No? That's it? Mr. Minority Leader and Senator Van Winkle would like to co-sponsor as well. And Senator Exum would like to co-sponsor Senate Bill 73. All right, get ready. Message from the House.
April 8, 2024, the House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1022 is printed in the House Journal. April 8, 2024, the House has adopted and turns herewith Senate Joint Resolution 11.
Introduction of memorials. Would the clerk please read the title of the Senate Joint Memorial 003?
Senate Joint Memorial 3 by Senators Lundin and Gardner and Representatives Wilson and Pugliese, memorializing former Senator Keith King.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate Joint Memorial 003 lay over until Monday, April 15th, 2024.
The motion is to lay over Senate Joint Memorial 003 to Monday, April 15, 2024. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. SJM 003 will lay over until Monday, April 15, 2024. Announcements. Senator Gardner or Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you look at the top of your calendar in the top right-hand corner, everyone, it says it is the 90th legislative day. Now, as you know, we could be done now. But others voted to fund your per diem and everything, my per diem, for all of us to be here for 30 more days. Admittedly, if we were going to do this within 90 days, we'd need to start mid-January, which wouldn't make anybody unhappy, my guess. And we'd need to finish in mid-May because that gets us around the March 21 budget forecast. See, I've given this a lot of thought. Now, I am not going to be here next year to speak about this. But when the 90th day rolls around, I really do encourage you to think of me. I know that's a scary thought, and that it's really not a bad idea. It is an idea whose time has come, and it can be done. It can be done. So I thank you all. I understand there's 400 bills left needing action within the next 30 days. That's more than 10 a day that we need. So if you kill 9 and pass 1, that'll start to get you there. Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. Have a good last month. I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
The motion is that we will all miss Senator Gardner. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Who said that? Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just a reminder that tomorrow morning, AAA will be having a breakfast in the West Foyer from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., special coffee catering, as well as lattes, Americanos, and espressos.
Senator Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education Committee will be meeting today at 1:30, room 357. We're going to hear House Bill 1154 and 1323. See you there.
Senator Baisley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request to be excused this afternoon so that I can fly my Learjet to Nova Scotia to see the total eclipse of the sun. Oh, wait. Mr. President, I just remembered I don't have a Learjet, so I withdraw my request.
Excellent. I was wondering how you could afford a Learjet on our salary. Senator, any further announcements? On time. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, the Senate Judiciary Committee will be meeting today at 1:30 p.m. in the Old Supreme Court to consider House Bill 1244. Thank you.
Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, after we see the partial eclipse, and I have extra glasses if anyone needs them, Transportation and Energy will be meeting at 1:30 in Senate Room 352.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Assistant Minority Leader Schwartz. I always like to recognize that the most time taken from the well and on the floor is from the good senator from Colorado Springs. So we could be done. So we might be done faster next year without that time taken from us on the floor. So we will miss you. On that, Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 12 o'clock today. Colleagues, you do not need to return. We'll just be reviewing bills to go over the desk.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will recess until 12 o'clock today.